Hey y'all, it's December 30th, and here we are again, almost getting close to wrapping up this year, and give you a little report on what we've been seeing in December and what we look forward to seeing here in January. And name of the game right now has been redfish.
Yeah, redfish and trout.
Redfish and trout. The redfish fishing, especially early in December,
Yeah, I would
was
say.
really good.
Yeah, I would say that was more continuation of what we were seeing.
It's like late
in
fall
November.
behavior, yeah.
Yeah.
And now, for sure, the fish have we're in the winter patterns.
Mm-hmm.
The fish are acting very much like winter fish, i.e., big schools. Generally, big schools. I actually saw a number of smaller schools today, but still schooled up.
Yeah.
Not a lot of food for them to eat, so they're not popping the surface as much. It's a little harder to find them, but when you find them, it's a bunch of fish, so
Right.
you're generally good.
But I think I think a lot of people think that it's the proverbial shooting fish in a barrel, and it's very much not the case.
Oh, the schools? No,
Yeah.
today was calm. We had periods of time. I know you got on more fish that were actually feeding today and giving you like some better. Where I was at, it was much calmer.
Yeah.
And every school, I was about to say almost every school that we tried to get on, or that we got on, it was just so calm and they were so skittish. They'd be just laid up there, and then we'd get on them, and they just wanted to go to the next zip code. I couldn't
They're
get
just,
them.
yeah,
It was like,
hyper-aware.
hey,
Yeah.
stop! Let us let us play the game. They really wanted to move. They wanted to get away from the boat.
Yeah.
And that was whereas you were just not that far away, different area, but not that far away, and you actually saw some like feeding fish and.
Yeah, I mean, I think today was just a function of we had warmer weather. It's been kind of a warming trend. We have this front that's pushing through, so it's kind of a pre-front bite with a warming trend. So the fish that I was seeing were pretty happy for the most part. There's definitely some places they were, low, lower in the water column, harder to see, but still saw a lot of good feeding activity. Water's a little bit off color with the rain. But
2 evenings ago, we saw a lot of good feeding behavior. Literally between where you and I were fishing today.
That's true.
Was that area we saw a few tails coming up, not really tailing, but like some tails popping
pop
up, some
out.
feeding behavior.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Another highlight that we had is I'm sure it's still happening now. We should say we both. I mean, it's the nature of the season. We both had took some vacation time.
Yeah.
Me for a wedding,
Christmas
you some
time.
family, Christmas. I was off the water for a week. I'll be honest. I came back a couple days, like Christmas Eve, being like, "Do I even know how to fish?"
Right.
Where do you find what are redfish?
It's crazy how, we're on the water every day.
So when you
And
take
so
a
you
week
take
off,
a week off, it's like,
are the fish
well,
still
what's
there?
going on? You're not
It's kinda-
as dialed in.
I did not feel like I had my finger on the pulse.
Right.
The past couple of days, we thought about, it was raining like crazy a couple of days ago, and we thought about shooting this video, and we're both like, let's get a few more days of fishing, because we actually...
Yeah, let's see how it goes.
Yeah, let's see what we're getting.
See what the patterns are.
Because it is funny how much you feel like, I don't think we have, but you feel like your fingers come off the pulse of what's going on here when you take a week off.
Right.
I felt like totally out of the loop. But that being said, you were fishing in the glades.
Yeah, so went down and fished with Jeff Legutke in the Glades. Had a wonderful time, learned a lot. Caught some bunch of snook, redfish, jumped a couple smaller tarpon, had some shots at some big snook. Fished some dock lights at night. It was super fun.
So at the wedding, one of the Airbnbs had a house on the water that had dock lights. And so I took Wyatt docklight fishing. I sent you a picture, and we caught a handful of like small trout. It wasn't crazy, but caught a handful of small trout. And then we got home. He got a tackle box for Christmas, and I couldn't convince him that the fish were sleeping at night anymore, because now he thinks like, Dad, we can fish.
We can still
Doesn't
fish.
matter.
Yeah.
Like, we're going fishing. So that was kind of funny. The docklights thing was unique.
Yeah, so we both took a little bit of time off. Both went fishing in our time off.
Classic.
But then, got back, and like you said, I'd say it's, pretty standard winter patterns.
And
Water's clearing
I think
up.
what I was saying, where I deviated into that early on, we got into some insane trout bites.
Yeah.
Some really good trout bites, mostly on artificial lures. Picked up a number of
Couple
trout on the fly as well,
yeah.
but like the real good bites were on artificial lures and just some really good trout action along the grass and stuff.
Using Ned rigs.
Ned rigs.
Yeah.
And that's what we wanted to highlight. Like for this month, largely, I've been throwing Ned rigs. I find Ned rigs a little harder they tend to be more, I don't want to say, Ned rigs require they're a little more technical. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, you need a little more finesse.
Like when you're going over oysters and stuff, you need to know like, oh, that's an oyster, bump it up a little faster. So like generally, I love fishing Ned rigs.
Yeah.
A lot of times I'll still fish like paddle tails.
Which still work great.
Work amazing. Yeah. So a lot of times for clients that don't get to fish as much necessarily or don't really have that feel for like what our terrain feels like subsurface, I'll still fish a lot of those paddle tails like what we've been fishing.
Yeah.
But Ned rigs have been
a lot
of fun.
On that note, I think the paddle tails are a good way to get people kind of used to it because you're still bumping.
Once I get people.
Once they realize like they bump an oyster bed and they're like, "That's an oyster bed." It's like, okay, well, let's try something a little different.
And that's exactly how I play it.
And transitions.
But those Ned rigs have been a lot of fun to work right now because the redfish are eating them. If they see them, they're eating them. Yeah. But also while you're working the Ned rigs, the trout love them. Like absolutely love them. I mean, we had the day before I went on vacation, we had a killer day. With the trout.
Crushed it that day.
With the trout, just like trout. And then the tide switched up a little bit, and then we got on the redfish. And my dude's throwing he loves some of this 1000 series reel on a fairly light rod.
The microlight
stuff. And hooked a 31.5-inch redfish on the Ned.
Yeah. That's a handful.
Dude, it was like, actually, before, what was it, earlier in December, I ended up catching a really big one.
Yeah, on the same setup.
No, he's the who got me on that setup.
Yeah, which is a super fun setup.
It's a fun setup, but man, when you hook into a fish that big, you feel a little underpowered.
Yeah.
You start getting some burn. A lot of fun, though. But yeah, what deviated, I was saying that the trout bite is also probably really good right now.
Right.
We've really focused since we've got back from vacation a couple days ago. These past 3 or 4 days, we've also had some really bad weather. Yeah. A few days in there that we haven't been able to fish. We just haven't gone after. I haven't been looking for the trout recently.
Yeah, mostly just
I'm sure they're in the holes, and I'm sure they're still fired up, and I can't wait to do that in January. I'm serious, dude. There's some holes that we need to go hit here in January for trout.
For sure.
With the Ned rigs. Yeah. But then I definitely, for January, that being said, for January, definitely expect the redfish. I mean, they're going to be schooled up, big schools.
Yeah. So, I mean, like this month, our water temp has been anywhere from 54 to about 58, 59, kind of hovering in that range, depending on the weather. And so for January, would expect it to cool down a little bit more.
A little bit. Hopefully not too much more. Hopefully we don't get any crazy stuff. Hopefully it stays in the
low to mid 50s.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what we've been seeing. One other thing I saw a couple of times this past month, which everybody's out there looking for the redfish super shallow. They might be out in 2 feet of water.
Yeah.
They might and again what we're talking about when we're talking about, I was thinking about this the other day, for people like, oh, what are they talking about? There's so much more fishing to be had. We are talking about flats fishing, like sight fishing, shallow water stuff. I'm not necessarily
pretty niche.
Except we were just talking about trout. There's a little deeper. Yeah. But generally, when I'm saying like, hey, I'm finding fish deeper, there are redfish in the deep water. They're in the holes. They're in all those places. I'm just saying.
But deep for us is 3 feet.
Deep for me is 3 feet. Yeah. Getting out into 2 feet, it's getting like, and and if the fish are laying low in 2 feet of water, it's really hard to find them.
It is.
But there's been a number of days where the water's been clean, and those big schools are out there in 2 feet of water, and you can see them, and it's pretty crazy when you find them out there.
Dark spots, muds, tail flicks, peck fins,
all that stuff.
All give it away, especially in that deeper water when it is clear.
One trout decides he's going to grab a shrimp.
Yeah.
It gives away the whole school. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So, y'all, that's pretty much all I got.
Yeah. I mean, I think that January will just be a continuation of the winter patterns. Clearer water. When it's clear, you want to try and extend your cast a little bit more if you can. Yeah. Stay back as far as you can because they're going to be a little bit more on edge with the clear water. Yeah. But yeah, don't be afraid to fish. All parts of the time.
We wanted to mention.
Don't lock in on one particular
like where you found the fish. There's definitely what I look forward to in January is having more time. it's my slowest month for sure.
Yeah.
Is January, and I'm looking forward to having more time to play in parts of the tide where I don't necessarily spend as much time.
Yeah.
Because there's fish to be found. You just may have to work a little harder.
Right.
But it's pretty rewarding when you find.
They're still there.
They're there.
But you got to be out there.
Yeah.
And the more you're out there, I think the more you'll see things that will surprise you at different parts of the tide. And then you can kind of connect the dots and you almost learn how those fish move through a particular spot. And it's going to be different spot to spot.
100%.
But that's part of the fun.
That is the fun.
That out.
The fun is like the puzzle, the challenge. Catching fish is a ton of fun, and obviously that's why we're out there to catch fish. But ultimately, when I find a new piece of that puzzle and I'm able to put these dots together and like expand into like another type of zone, like habitat or zone, or figure a few things out in the tide phase of the tide where I might not have had a number, dude, it's fun just to put it all together.
It really is.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, y'all get out there and get into some fish. It's January, but it is still time to fish in the low country.
It is, yeah. And I know I have some openings for January because it's
January
month. Because it can be cold, but the fishing can still be really good. You can still redfish in the wintertime.
I would rather be fishing right now than in April.
Yeah.
100%. 100%.
I would agree with that. So, yeah.